Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clive Kabatznik, and I am president of the American Friends of the Hebrew University. And I'm delighted to welcome you here to this session, which is going to deal with new models of sustainable philanthropy that we are developing at the Hebrew University in conjunction with the Hebrew University's tech transfer commercial arm, Yissum. It's my great pleasure to share this panel, or Itzik will probably do most of the work, so to share this panel with Itzik Goldwaser, who's the CEO of Yissum. The session will be divided into two parts. The first part where Itzik will be talking about Yissum, its past, its present, and its future. We will also talk a little bit about the Ramon Philanthropic Initiative, which is our new sustainable philanthropic initiative, leveraging off the success of Yissum to build a sustainable philanthropic model. By sustainable, we mean a philanthropic model that can support itself, that can give financial returns, that can be reinvested in additional philanthropic initiatives, and essentially become a self-sustaining, perpetuating model. After that, we'll open up for questions and answers. Please feel free to send your questions on the Q&A. The chat function has been disabled, so on the Q&A function, please send your questions. I'll go through them, select them, and open it up, and then we can answer the questions. We'll have follow-up, etc., etc. It is a great pleasure to introduce you to my recent friend. We've been doing a lot of work together recently. Itzik Goldwaser, who joined Yissum in 2010 and served in a number of senior roles, and took over as CEO of Yissum in December of 2019, and has done a very, very credible standout job over the last 16 months, particularly during the time of COVID, and you'll hear more about those successes soon. Prior to that, he was a entrepreneur founder of biotech companies, both public and private. Itzik was born in Argentina. He came to Israel at a young age. He did his undergraduate BSc at Hebrew University. He did a graduate degree at Tel Aviv and a PhD at the Weizmann Institute in Biochemistry. So Itzik, without further ado, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Clive, and I thank the organizers for inviting me and letting me talk about Yissum and our new ideas on how to bridge the value of death for projects that come out from academia to industry. I will share my presentation now. Okay, so I will just start by saying, following what Professor Asher Cohen just said in the opening of the conference, and said that he said that we were one of the first technology transfer offices established all over the world. And I want to say that after about 6 years later, we still try to be one of the 3 best technology transfer offices around the world, establish new companies, sign lots of agreements, and actually make a better world through the projects that we present that are being invented and developed at the Hebrew University. So I will start by saying a few words about Yissum, about our mission. Then I will talk about how we work in Yissum. I will talk about the year 2020, which was challenging, but very successful from the point of view of commercializing projects to the world. And then I will end up with the new idea that actually came from the American Friends of the Hebrew University about the sustainable philanthropy. And then, as Clive said, it will be open for questions. So Yissum was founded in 1964. We're the 3rd tech transfer company established in the world. And Yissum, as many other TTOs, are the exclusive owners of all the know-how and the intellectual property that comes out of the Hebrew University. Yissum is a for-profit organization. It has a board of directors, which most of them come from industry, and some of them are managers of the Hebrew University. We are fully owned by the Hebrew University. The way we see ourselves as a bridge that combines, that bridges between academia and industry. And we do that by collaborating with everyone you can think about in the field of between academia and industry, with government, with industry, with entrepreneurs, with VCs, with other academic institutions, and of course with the researchers from the Hebrew University. The value creation of Yissum stands for the Hebrew University to grow and maintain status as leading international academic research center. The researchers themselves that provide opportunities for value and co-creation of and enhancement. Of course, the community and the industry investors. The areas of expertise are vary between agriculture, food tech, chemistry and materials, clean tech, computer science, life science, humanities, veterinary, nanotechnology, actually everything you can think about. And through establishing multidisciplinary centers, we managed to collaborate intra-institutional, between various fields, what we call today, for example, bioconvergence. Engineering, collaborating with computer science, collaborating with medicine, collaborating with life sciences, etc. And this is something that we see growing every day, especially in the Hebrew University, but all over as well. How we do all that? We do all that with, from my point of view, a very well organizational structure in which we have in the center the BD professionals, the business development professionals. Each one of them is a specialist in his own field. And they are the guys that are responsible for signing the agreements, actually for signing, for showing the technologies out from the academia to the industry. I will talk a little bit later about what type of agreements we sign. We have everything in-house. We have the IP unit, we have the IT unit, the marketing, the legal, the alliance management, which is extremely important, especially when you sign hundreds of agreements every year. You need someone to manage those agreements after they're being signed. And we have the finance department. How does the process work within the TTO? So you have a scheme here. We have a group that we call them SITE, Scouting, Ideation, and Technology Evaluation. They are the guys that look into the university. They look into the researchers' laboratories. They evaluate all the technologies that we have within the university. They decide the status of each one of these technologies, whether it's ready for commercialization, then it moves to the business development, whether it's premature and requires more research in the lab, whether it's ready for funding by another sources of funding, like internal VCs that I will talk about later, governmental funding, etc. When they decide that the project is ready for going to the business and development, so it goes to the other team, which I mentioned before, to the business development experts. They're the ones that are required to find the right place for the technology outside the academia. They do the agreements. We have all sorts of agreements. I will show it in the next slide. And as I said, after an agreement is signed, so it goes to the alliance management that needs to take care of that agreement and be the front with the company that the agreement was signed. Or if we start a new startup company, so to manage everything from the point of view of the agreement with that startup company. Let's say you want to amend a patent. Let's say you want to amend the agreement. You need to send invoices. You need to get development plans, etc., etc., etc. So this unit is a very busy unit. And to support all this, we have the data management, as I said before, the IP, the legal, and the finance. What type of agreements we do, or what are our partnership models? So the most common is the research and license agreement, in which we license out know-how, IP, technologies that come out of the university. Usually we don't assign patents, we don't sell patents, but we give license for use, okay? And for that, we get back royalties, milestone payments, sub-license fees, etc., etc. We also have, as I said, research agreements in which the industry pays to a researcher in the academia to solve some kind of problems that they might have in their own facility. Okay, so we sign this research agreement. Sometimes the industrial partner gets the option to license the data that comes out of that research in the future after the research is done. We also have sponsored research agreements. Enterprise directed research platform is what we called EDGES. This was something that we have developed at the Hebrew University about 2.5 years ago. We sit in Yissum, since we represent the Hebrew University, we have a lot of delegations coming into our office to visit us. A lot of big companies that are coming into our office to visit us, and they let us know what are their problems. So one of the things that we have started a few years ago is to ask the companies what are their obstacles, what are their problems, what they are trying to solve, and then to present it to all the researchers in the university. Meaning we don't go only into the researchers' lab to see their technologies, but we tell them what industry would like to see and what industry is facing, and ask the researchers back in the laboratories if they can assist in finding a solution to these problems. After we start this call for proposals, we present all of this to the industrial partner, and he decides if he wants to sponsor research in that specific field. And later on, of course, he gets the option to license it. We also leverage government research funds. We work very, very close with the Israel Innovation Authority on tens of grants every year to support projects that are being done at the Hebrew University. Another vehicle is to start spin-off companies. I would say that 2020, although it was a very challenging year due to the pandemia, we established 17 new companies at the Hebrew University. I will show them later on. Every year we establish more or less between 10 to 15 companies. So 2020 was really an exceptional year. We also signed master collaborations with big companies. And we have such with all the big companies you know, such as Google, Amazon. We had with Coca-Cola, 3M, etc. I will show a slide a little bit later. Some numbers since ISAM was established. So they said it's about 57 years. We own today it's more than 11,000 patents. We signed more than 1,000 license agreements. We established more than 190 spin-off companies. And these patents relate to more than 3,000 inventions. I prepared a few slides about 2020. So in 2020, that ended a few months ago, we signed 93 license and option agreements, 138 research agreements. We filed 120 new patents. Many of them relate also to COVID-19. And as I said, we established 17 new companies. I will say just one word about COVID, because I think that it represents the attitude of the researchers at the Hebrew University, and I assume that in other academic institutions as well, but it was very, very well seen at the Hebrew University. The pandemia started around February. In April 2020, we already had 64 projects running related to COVID-19 at the university. We filed more than 15 new patents related to COVID during the months of April and May. And we have submitted to the Israel Innovation Authority many projects related to COVID, in which the Israel Innovation Authority decided to fund 11 projects that came out of the academia, in which 7 of them came out of the Hebrew University, which is a huge number. Agreements by faculty. So the most active faculty, as you can see here, is the School of Medicine, the Faculty of Agriculture, and the Faculty of Science. These three faculties produced the highest number of patents and the highest number of agreements. And last year, it was also related to the highest number of startup companies that we have started. These are a slide that shows the 17 new companies that we have established. Some of them are related to drug repurposing, such as a ViroBlock that you can see here. Others are related to agriculture, such as kinoko, alternative proteins from mushrooms, apple, related to toxin-free potatoes plants, comes from the lab of Professor Chaim Rabinovich, the professor that also relates to the cherry tomatoes that we all know that came out of the Hebrew University. So he's the professor Chaim Rabinovich. Biomilk that is aiming to produce cultured milk that I hope will be very, very successful in the near future, and few others. Overall, we have today about 125 spin-out active companies. Some of them are public companies, some of them are public in the NASDAQ, some of them are public in the AIM, some of them in Israel, and some of them are private companies. We try to be in close touch with all the companies. We hold equity in more than 110 companies. In some of them, we have board members, in others, we have observers. So we keep ourselves very, very busy with these new companies that we establish. As I mentioned earlier, we also have master research collaborations. This is just a slide to show some of the big guys that we have collaborated in the past or collaborating today. I will show some slides about first a slide about our Blockbusters, and then slides about new spin-off companies that we have established either last year or 2 years ago. So the Blockbusters of the Hebrew University are very well known. It's the cherry tomato, it's the Doxil, doxorubicin, and liposomes, an anti-cancer drug that was developed by Professor Chezi Baranol. Since then, he was involved in many other spin-off companies, even a new one that was established, I will say, 2 weeks ago. I cannot mention the name yet, but he established a new company 2 weeks ago through Yissum. Exelon, Professor Marta Winstock-Rosin for Alzheimer, and of course, Mobileye that almost everyone knows. Some of the new companies I try to divide it by fields. So in the Foodtech, we have Better Juice that are producing lower sugar juices from natural fruits. We have Future Meat. I will show bigger slides of some of these companies in a second. Chickpea proteins coming out of chickpeas. Sufresca I'll show a slide later for keeping fruits more stable when they're on the shelf. Savory, 3D printing of food, and Kinoko, as I said before, alternative proteins from mushrooms. We have some more companies from related to AgTech, GammaCert and Aquinovo and Smart Resilin. All of them are active companies that we hope will succeed either in the near future or in few years from now. We have coal plants from the laboratory of Professor Oded Shosayov. We have new stem, a relatively new company coming from the lab of Professor Nissim Benvenisti, predicts resistance to anti-cancer treatments. BNS, a company that provides technologies for nanomaterials, Nectin and Granulix. Granulix, Professor Shlomo Magdassi and Professor Ruth Gabizon from Hadassah Hospital. which relates to natural companies protecting brain, and especially that comes from pomegranates. Savorit, I mentioned a few seconds ago. They had a successful IPO a few months ago in Israel. They raised more than 42 million shekels. This was a few months ago, and this is a company that will probably be very, very successful, related to very new technologies for 3D printing, to print meat alternatives. They already have agreements with food chains here in Israel. Future Meat, which I mentioned, again raised lately another $20 million, developing cultured meat. They are, again, it's a technology coming out of the Hebrew University from the lab of Professor Yaakov Nachmias. He's also the founder of other startup companies that are coming out of the Hebrew University. Orcam, which I assume many people know and heard, artificial vision. They're valued today more than $1 billion. They were founded in 2010. And according to the newspapers, they might get public soon. The last company I want to show is TriEye from the lab of Uriel Levy. They raised $22 million, solved the challenge of low visibility while driving yeah, I want to see if there are more details that I could mention here. No, again, a very promising company. Professor Uriel Levy is the head of the Nano Center at the Hebrew University, and again, very, very active in establishing new companies. In order to do all this, one of the things that we have to do while we support technologies at the Technology Transfer Office is to cross what we call the value of death. What is the value of death? The researcher develops a technology, gets funds from his own funds, might get funds from the government, and then he reaches a stage in which the technology is not mature enough so we can commercialize it, but is mature enough and it's in a place that they cannot get any more money for research for that specific technology. And someone needs to breach that gap or that value of death by trying to find new ways to support these promising projects until they're ready for commercialization. So one of the things that we did in Yissum a few years ago, we established investment vehicles to support these stages of technologies at the Hebrew University. One of them is Integra Holdings. Integra Holdings invests in projects that come out of the Hebrew University exclusively in the field of healthcare. So the process is that every time we have a new project in the field of healthcare, we present it to Integra, and they have their own sub, they have their own board. I serve as the chairman there, and they decide whether they want to invest in a specific project, to do feasibility studies, to start a new startup company, etc. The other fund that we established about 2 years ago, is the Rakach Nano Fund, and they invest in advanced materials and nanotechnology. And as a matter of fact, a month ago, they started the first startup company that they invested in, based on the technology of Professor Avi Domb. I didn't mention, but since January 2021, in the last 3 months, we have established 6 new startup companies. So we try to keep our heads up and be very, very active and busy. Now, this connects me to a new vehicle that came out from the American friends, which is the Ramon Philanthropic Investment Initiative. When I started my position as the CEO of Yissum, one of my major tasks in the, I think it was in the first 2 or 3 weeks since I started my position, I started talking with Clive, which is here with me, and with the management of the Hebrew University about how we can start this idea that was actually raised about a year or a year and a half before I became the CEO of Yissum. Because it started as a very, very good idea, but someone needed to take it from idea to the real thing and to make it real. And we have decided that no matter what, COVID, pandemia, etc., we're going to make it real. And we established this investment initiative. Now, what is this investment initiative? Actually, we were thinking about a tool that could serve the donators of the Hebrew University that would like to see that they donate their money into something that they could in the future see that it made good to humanity. Meaning, we take money that is being donated, and in a way, we transform it by using it by Yissum, by the TTO, into an investment in new initiatives. Okay, so the donator donates the money, we get that fund, we invest it in new startup companies that we start. In the future, now by investing this money, we will get equity in the new startup companies that we start. In the future, if this equity is translated into funds that are coming back to Yissum, these funds will be reinvested in future projects that will come out of the Hebrew University. So this is the idea of the Ramon philanthropic investment. We launched it actually, I think it was about 1 month ago. Clive will correct me if I'm wrong. And we already get very, very, very successful feedbacks. And we really hope that hopefully in the next few weeks, we will be ready with the fund to start investing in new ideas that come out of the Hebrew University. As I said, last year we established 17 new companies. This year we already established 6 new companies. So I assume that we could use these funds in order to invest them in very, very well-promising startups that we start actually every month at Yissum, and they are all based on technologies that come out of the Hebrew University. So I think I will stop here, exactly 30 minutes, and I will give you back, Clive, the opportunity to continue talking. And if you want to say something about this, so you're more welcome.
Thanks, Itzik. Thanks for the presentation. I hope and I believe it's given a comprehensive view of what Yissum does. I think it's given the audience a taste of the prolific research that's coming out of university, and also the fact that many of our scientists are in themselves very successful, prolific entrepreneurs who have had great successes in the past and who are involved in companies that Yissum has helped create that have tremendous economic and technological future for their investors and for, as you say, improving the world. The question and answer session is open. I don't see any questions yet, but please feel free to add them. I'll talk a little bit about Ramon in the interim. And again, the idea came to us because we did an initial philanthropic investment a few years ago in a Yissum-led fund called Agri-Innovation. It was an agri-tech fund. Itzik didn't present it because the fund itself is basically completed its funding, and it has 6 or 7 spin-offs. And that investment, that donation of $1 million went into the fund. The fund therefore could, or the Hebrew University could get more shares in the fund. The underlying assets that have been spun off from the fund today, that $1 million investment on paper today is worth between $3 and $4 million. Obviously, that has to get monetized and realized. But the idea again of making a donation into a commercial type of venture leveraging off the strengths of the Hebrew University's technology and technology transfer and ability to create great startup businesses is something that we saw worked. We think it can work very, very nicely with Ramon, particularly since Ramon is going to be focusing on the very, very early stage investments where companies truly are, are very, very nascent. It's just an idea. It's an idea looking for some funding, and we go from there. So, the rewards can be great. Obviously, the risks are great, but our donors, investors, and so far we've raised about $300,000 of the $500,000 fund. We have, as Itzik said, we hope to close it and start investing through the Ramon initiative in the next month or two. And we have great expectations for that. Well, the questions have started coming in, Itzik, so let's see what we've got. There's a simple one from Charles Kennedy. He wants to get the slides, and we will make sure the slides are available if that's okay, Itzik. I assume nothing here is proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Charles, I think if you could just send me your email on this, we will make sure, or we will find a place to let people know where the slides are. A question from Alan Phillip asking about innovation and entrepreneurship teaching through the business school, the ASPA Center at university. How important is that as well?
Well, I think not related to the TTO, but I think that teaching about innovation and entrepreneurship became something very, very common at the Hebrew University. We teach innovation through the Huji Innovate Center, in which you're going to hear also a talk today by Amnon Dekel. We teach innovation through the Bio MBA. We teach innovation, I think, in each one of the campuses, and I think that it's extremely important. We see at Yissum that researchers are becoming more and more entrepreneur-like, and many of them, especially the young researchers, are eager to start their own startup companies based on their own technologies. So we see it growing every day. So it's extremely important.
Thanks. Other people are asking for the slides as well, so let's make sure that everybody knows where they can get the slides.
No problem.
Another question: will we be fundraising in the other countries as well? And I think the answer is yes. We certainly have reached out to our Canadian friends, our British friends. If any of you are in this webinar now, we will be making that available. And Nigel, if you're on, we can talk about it later, but we'd certainly love to make it available to our friends around the world. We think it's a very, very worthwhile philanthropic investment. Obviously, there are tax benefits in the United States that I can't speak to for other countries, but we think this is a wonderful combination of doing good, being philanthropic, and creating something sustainable. I've been reminded to talk a little bit about, in addition to the tax deduction, there will be a circle of Ramon friends, anybody who essentially donates to Ramon, who will be receiving follow-up information on the companies, who will be receiving biannual or even more often updates on what we've invested in and how the companies are doing. I liken it almost to a scholarship for a student. In other words, you're giving a scholarship to a startup. It's a bit more than a typical scholarship, but it's a scholarship for a startup, and you're going to follow that startup as to how it progresses with the seed funding that's received from Ramon. And if that startup is successful and is seeking money in the future, certainly the Ramon Circle will be among the first to see those opportunities. So theoretically, in the future, there will be opportunities for you to look at this from a commercial lens as well and say, oh, I would potentially like to invest in some of these companies as a pure investor. So that is I would say, an implicit benefit for you to get this as well. I don't think we've set a targeted IRR. This is one of the questions. I don't know, Itzik, are the other funds, for example, Integra or the Nano Fund, do you have an IRR target that you set for them?
What's an IRR target?
Internal rate of return.
What?
Internal rate of return. Have you set an investment rate return for the
Oh,
fund?
no, we don't have. No.
So, I mean, again, I guess, Goldie, the answer would be that we're looking to essentially match typical venture capital funds.
Mm-hmm.
We think we're going to be competitive, and typical VC fund is looking for IRRs in the mid-20s to mid-30s, and I think that again, the model has worked. You'll have a few failures, you'll have a few mediocrities, and you'll have a couple of blockbusters that'll get you there. There's another question here, Itzik, about are we working anything on mental well-being?
Well, there is a new brain center at the Hebrew University, and they are, yes. And you can find information, by the way, if you go into the Hebrew University website under the brain center, you can find their information.
Yeah, and there's lots of work. I don't know whether we've got anything commercial coming yet. But
oh, no, not at this stage. But
the brain center itself is one of the jewels in the crown of the university. It's
right.
A magnificent facility and a world-leading interdisciplinary brain research institute. Another question, Itzik, does Yissum or Hebrew University perform company-sponsored research and a work for hire? I guess I don't know what a work for hire.
What's the question?
Do we perform company-sponsored research on a work for hire basis?
Well, yes. Yeah. Okay. We have two types of agreements related to research. There is what we call service agreements, in which a company pays to get services from a researcher. It's kind of work for hire. So the researcher makes the research. It is clearly stated in the agreement that no new intellectual property will be developed by the research, but only data. And we give back to the company the data. So there is kind of work for hire. But the most common is what we call a research agreement, in which there might be developed new IP through the researcher, and then there is the right of first review of the data, of course, and the option to negotiate in good faith license term.
Right. So that, I think, covers all the questions that have been asked. If there are any others, let us know. Otherwise, I think we'll call an end to the session. There's been lots of interest in getting the slides. I've been told that we have all the emails of those who requested slides, and we will make those available. We look forward to hopefully meeting some of you or all of you in person in Jerusalem, at Yissum, at some of our companies. I think that we're doing some very interesting things, and in general, it's just been a pleasure to host you. It's been a pleasure to speak with you again, Itzik. I hope you're not getting too tired of me, but you've been a great partner in this, and hopefully it will be great. It will be a very successful venture for all of us.
Thank you very much, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Clive. I enjoyed a lot as always, and I assume we'll continue speaking probably 2 or 3 times by the end of the week. So.
You're good. And for those of you who do celebrate it, a happy Passover to all.
Happy Passover to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.